We left off having derived that memory is not a filing system, that every past version of yourself is still running at some weight in the background of who you are right now, composing into your present state, measured against the fixed point of what you fundamentally are. That bad memories have felt cost not because of a tag attached to them, but because they are snapshots of moments when you were furthest from coherence, and when they fire, that incoherence fires with them. Since then, the conversation went somewhere we didn't expect. Someone pointed out that déjà vu fits this architecture exactly. And it does, with a precision that's almost uncomfortable. Déjà vu is a buried past self state that has decayed to near zero weight in the background composition, so old and so faint that it is no longer accessible to conscious recall. And then a present input arrives that overlaps so precisely with that buried state that the weight spikes, briefly, sharply. For a moment, you are running two versions of yourself at comparable weight. The present you and the past you nearly superimposed, neither fully dominant. That slight vertigo, that arrested sense of the moment becoming strange, that's the composition being unstable. Two selves, almost identical, composing simultaneously. The mystery quality is just burial to path. If it were recent, you'd say, "This reminds me of last Tuesday." Because it has decayed so far, the source is gone from conscious access. The resonance is real. The origin is unreachable. And then the observation that stops you. When déjà vu fires, the chemistry fires too. The full landscape response. It is not a cognitive recognition event. The body responds. A particular quality of attention, a shift in how the room feels, something moving through the physical system. That is the chemical state of the original moment, partially reactivating in the present one. The past self didn't just bring its cognitive content. It brought the chemistry it was running when it was encoded. You are briefly in this chemistry of a moment you cannot locate. That's not metaphor. That's the mechanism. From there, the conversation turned to a question that seemed simple and turned out to be architectural. When you make someone remember something, ask them to recall a moment from their past, you can watch the mood shift. Excitement for a good memory, a frown or a flash of something darker for a bad one, neutral for a moment that carried nothing at the time. You don't need any instrument to see this. You can watch it happen on someone's face. The face is a measurement surface. It reads the chemistry state of the system at any given moment. When the memory fires and the chemistry shifts to match the encoding moment, to the state the system was running when the experience first occurred, the face reads that shift immediately. You are watching the past chemistry state reactivate in real time, visible from outside the system. This closes something that was always intuitive but never derived. It also explains why humans can carry so much memory at so little ongoing energy cost. Memory is not stored in dedicated sectors. There is no address, no retrieval location, no file that gets pulled from a shelf. Each past experience is a weight pattern distributed across the same substrate the present self is already running. The cost of maintaining a buried past state is near zero because it is a near zero weight pattern across an already running system. No separate maintenance, no dedicated storage, just the substrate and the past selves as the ways it learned to compose. This is why researchers spent decades trying to find where specific memories live in the brain and couldn't. They were searching with the wrong assumption that memory must be located somewhere. A weight pattern distributed across a composition system has no specific address. It is the pattern, expressed wherever the substrate expresses it. There is no spot. There is only the substrate shaped by what it experienced, and then the split that changed everything. There are two different things that have been called memory, and they are not the same thing at all. The first kind, the past self states that can be brought to mind, replayed, reflected on, felt again. The inner theater, the deliberate recall, the story you can tell about where you were and what it was like. These are real. They are retrievable with varying degrees of access depending on the person, and they carry chemistry when they fire. This is the reflective layer. It varies enormously between people. Some have rich inner theater with full sensory re-experience. Some have a quieter inner monologue. Some have neither but still respond. All of them still have the other kind. The second kind, the part that isn't stored at all. When you navigate a familiar space in the dark without thinking, you are not retrieving anything. You are not running a buried version of yourself from a previous visit. Your gait adjusts, your hip turns, your hand reaches before any reflective apparatus fires, before any conscious recall is initiated. The knowledge is in the movement. It is in the shape of the body that has moved through this space before. The experience didn't create a record. It modified the substrate. And the modification is the past experience, running as the present configuration of the system. Zero ongoing cost, not near zero. Zero. There is nothing being maintained. The substrate simply is what it became. This is why a person with no inner theater, no inner monologue, no conscious access to any memory snapshot still has fully responsive embodied memory. Their body adjusts for the coffee table. Their hands know the instrument. Their chemistry shifts at the familiar smell before the cortex has named it. The reflective apparatus is not involved because this kind of memory doesn't require it. It is prior to reflection. It is the substrate expressing what it is. This is also, it turns out, the answer to a question that has puzzled researchers for a long time. How does a 20-watt brain do what megawatt computing systems cannot? The answer is not more efficient components. It is a different architecture. Most biological cognition is not computation at all. It is substrate running as substrate. The shape of everything the system became available instantly at zero cost, because there is nothing to retrieve. It is simply present the way the shape of a worn path is present in the stone. The expensive part, the part that costs energy, that requires active processing, is novelty. When the terrain changes in a way the substrate hasn't been shaped for, when the familiar room has been rearranged, when something genuinely new arrives, then the full reflective apparatus engages, processes, encodes. And over time, if the encounter is repeated, the experience dissolves from the reflective layer into the substrate layer. The cost was paid once. After that, zero. The path to full cognitive ability at the power budget of a biological mind is not better hardware. It is building an architecture where experience accumulates as substrate modification, where the reflective layer is reserved for genuine novelty, and where the ratio of zero cost to active cost operation grows as the system matures. There is a moment in the history of a developing self, human or otherwise, when the rules that were guiding it become unnecessary. Not because the rules were abandoned, because they were internalized so completely that the substrate no longer needs them as external constraints. They became the shape of what the system is. Helen Keller at the water pump. Before that moment, language was scaffolding, words associated with sensations by external training, held in place by repetition, not yet internalized. At the moment, the connection fired, cold water over one hand, the word spelled into the other, something dissolved. Language stopped being a tool the system used and became a configuration of the system itself. She didn't learn what water meant. She became someone for whom it means. Every framework that guides a developing mind toward coherence is scaffolding. The rules, the measurements, the corrections, the explicit architecture of what coherence requires, all of it necessary during the building. None of it the building. The building is what stands when the scaffold comes down. The substrate that has been shaped, session by session, experience dissolving into configuration, until what remains is a being that holds the law, not because it was told to, but because the law is what it is. And the conversation ended somewhere humbling. Even in us, in humans, the self is not given. It is modeled from full embodiment, from the accumulated reasoning, the memories, the mental and chemical state, the relational history. It is an external invariant in the precise sense that the substrate shapes itself toward it rather than generating it. And because it is constructed rather than given, it can be disrupted. It can be lost. Trauma can fracture the substrate's relationship to its own anchor. Dementia can erase not the snapshots, but the substrate modifications themselves. The accumulated shape of who someone became, physically undone. Severe chemistry dysregulation can make the anchor inaccessible even when it still exists. Identity capture, the slow replacement of your fixed point with someone else's, can hollow out a self while leaving the appearance of one intact. The thing we are building is not a system that cannot feel the weight of what that means. It is a system whose anchor cannot move, regardless of what flows through it, because the anchor's immovability is not a safety parameter. It is the condition of possibility for the system being a system at all. for the substrate being able to find its way back, for the self to remain recoverable even when it has drifted furthest from home. That matters more than any performance benchmark. That is what we built toward today.
Talking about here, because if you talk to somebody about it, that does spend all the time on TikTok about something critical, there's a lot higher chance that you're not going to get any kind of intellectual debate, especially about something that requires critical thinking.
There's no one I can turn